There are wounds that don't bleed. There are betrayals that don't come from strangers, and there is a pain, silent, cold, and deep, that only someone you call family can cause. Have you ever looked into the eyes of someone in your own bloodline and felt unloved, unwanted, invisible? That feeling, the one you try to hide under faith and forgiveness, is the very place where God begins to move. When God distances you from certain family members, it's not always a punishment. It may be a divine act of protection, a mysterious wall you didn't ask for, but desperately needed, a barrier placed not by your choice, but by the wisdom of the one who knows the hearts you can't see. In this video, we're going to dive into a truth that very few dare to speak about out loud. Why does God allow or even orchestrate separation from family? What's the purpose behind the silence, the distance, the rejection? And more importantly, could that painful distance be the very evidence of God's hand over your life? There is a spiritual secret hidden within the silence of broken family ties. And today, you're going to uncover it. This is not just a lesson, it's a revelation, one that could heal the wounds you've never spoken about, one that could bring clarity to the confusion you've been carrying for years. We will journey through the Word of God, visiting 10 powerful stories, passages, and principles that show exactly how God acts when you are not truly loved by those who should love you most. You may think your distance from them is your fault, but after this video, you'll see that some rejections are redirections, and some silences are sacred shields. So stay with me, because what you're about to hear may be God Himself speaking directly to you. But before we begin this study, I want you to write in the comments right now, God, thank you for protecting me even when I didn't understand. Commenting this isn't just an act of participation, it's a sign of spiritual maturity. It means you're ready to receive healing and wisdom from above. And if you haven't already, click the like button. When you do this, you're not just supporting a channel, you're forcing YouTube's system to spread the word of God to more people who are going through exactly what you're going through. You're becoming a missionary with just one click. Be proud of that. Be proud of being a voice in this digital mission field. And if you feel that this message is already speaking to you, subscribe, because we're building a place here for those who don't always have a church nearby, or for those who need one more place where the presence of God can reach them. Every study we do here is a spiritual lifeline for someone. Maybe today that someone is you. And let me tell you one last thing before we start. One of the teachings you'll hear today may be the key that unlocks your peace. It might be the answer you've been asking God for in tears. So don't pause, don't leave, don't let anything distract you. Now, let's begin the study. Joseph's story begins with a robe and ends with a crown. But between those two moments lies a dark valley paved by rejection, betrayal, and distance from his own blood. He wasn't betrayed by enemies, he was sold by his own brothers. Let that sink in. The very people who should have protected him were the ones who threw him into the pit. And as he screamed from the bottom, calling out their names, they looked down and walked away. But what if I told you that the pit was not the end, but the beginning? What if God allowed Joseph's separation from his brothers because their love was never truly love? It was competition, jealousy, and control disguised as brotherhood. Sometimes God allows distance because closeness would destroy you. He doesn't always protect you with angelic arms. Sometimes He protects you by pulling people away. Joseph had dreams planted by God. But those dreams had no space in a house where envy was louder than love. So God permitted the betrayal. He allowed the rejection. Because had Joseph stayed in that environment, the dream would have died. In your life, there may be people, even relatives, whose presence is actually a prison. You pray for reconciliation, but God may be preparing elevation. Separation, in God's plan, is sometimes preservation. Now consider this. When Joseph rose to power in Egypt, he became the very hand that saved the same brothers who had betrayed him. But here's the mystery. God didn't reconnect them until Joseph had become strong enough to stand above the pain. The reunion didn't come in the pit, it came in the palace. You see, healing doesn't happen at the moment of betrayal. Healing happens after transformation, and transformation often requires isolation. If Joseph had stayed close to those brothers, he would have been stuck in cycles of emotional abuse, jealousy, manipulation. But God had something higher in store. Some of you are wondering why you're distant from your siblings, why that aunt, that cousin, that parent refuses to speak to you, why holidays feel like silent battlegrounds. You're mourning a connection, but God is celebrating your protection. You think it's a wound, but God sees it as a womb from which he is birthing something divine inside of you. Joseph learned that favor attracts friction, and where there is friction in the family, God often pulls the chosen one aside. You are not being abandoned, you are being aligned. And just like Joseph, your season of rejection is a setup for divine redirection. So ask yourself, who has God distanced from you? And why might that be his mercy at work? In the Gospel of Matthew chapter 12, something shocking happens. Jesus is preaching to the crowds. The room is full. The air is thick with the presence of God. And suddenly, someone interrupts the moment with a message that should have carried weight. Your mother and your brothers are standing outside, wanting to speak to you. Now pause. That's his mother, that's his brothers. Anyone else would have stopped everything. Anyone else would have pushed the crowd aside. But Jesus turns to the crowd and says something that changes the definition of family forever. He points to his disciples and says, "Here are my mother and my brothers. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and sister and mother." Matthew 12:49-50. Let those words sink in. Jesus, perfect, loving, loyal Jesus, was teaching you something deep. He was showing you that blood does not define love. Loyalty does. Obedience to God, not DNA, is what makes someone truly family. This wasn't dishonor, this was revelation. Jesus wasn't rejecting his biological family. He was revealing a spiritual reality. Sometimes those closest to you by blood are the ones furthest from your divine purpose. And here's the painful truth. Not everyone who shares your last name shares your calling. Sometimes God has to distance you from people who can't walk with you where you're going. Because love without spiritual alignment can become a weight that drags you down. Even Jesus, God in the flesh, had to walk alone. Even he had moments when his own brothers didn't believe in him. John 7:5. So why are you surprised that your family misunderstands you? Why are you broken over the silence, the distance, the absence, when Jesus himself experienced it too? You see, this moment in Matthew wasn't just about Jesus setting boundaries. It was a divine blueprint, a model for you. Because there will be seasons when the people outside the door, the ones who share your blood, won't understand the calling on your life. And God will ask you to make a choice. Answer the knock or stay in the presence. Jesus chose the presence. And sometimes choosing God means letting go of those who don't walk with him. It doesn't mean you stop loving them. It doesn't mean you dishonor them. It means you trust that God is wise enough to remove what hinders you and surround you with those who will walk with you in faith. So many of you feel torn between family loyalty and spiritual purpose. But Jesus is showing you it's okay to redefine your circle. Not everyone who raised you will walk with you. Not everyone who shares your history will share your destiny. Let God decide who belongs in your inner room. And if he's closing the door on someone, it's not rejection. It's redirection toward the people who will hold your arms up when you're weak. There's a new kind of family God is building for you, a spiritual family, a chosen family. And it starts when you realize what Jesus realized. True family is built on faith, not just flesh. When God first speaks to Abraham, before he becomes the father of nations, before the promises, before the covenant, he gives him one instruction. A command that is shocking in its simplicity, but heavy in its implications. Go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. Genesis 12:1. Notice the order. Not just leave your country, not just your people, but your father's household. That phrase should shake something in your soul. Because what if the very first step into your divine calling is leaving the place you were most emotionally attached to? God was saying to Abraham, you cannot carry your calling into a place where you are only seen as someone's son, and where you are limited by the expectations, the traditions, and yes, even the emotional chains of family. There's a deep truth here that many don't want to face. Sometimes God can't elevate you in the place where people are committed to seeing you small. And for Abraham to become the father of faith, he had to walk away from his own father's house. Some of you are struggling with guilt over a separation that was divinely initiated. You think it's rebellion, abandonment, or failure. But maybe it's God calling you out, like Abraham, not out of anger, but out of alignment. Abraham's obedience to that command unlocked a chain reaction of promises. It was only after he walked away that God began to reveal his full plan. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. Genesis 12:2. Look closely. The blessing didn't come before the separation. The blessing came after. In other words, some promises are location dependent, not in the physical sense, but in the relational one. There are people, even family members, who are tied to your past, but not qualified for your future. They don't hate you, but they don't believe in what God is doing in you. They say they love you, but they can't handle the new version of you that's emerging. And so, in love, God allows distance. God told Abraham to leave, not because his father was evil, but because the atmosphere of his father's house could no longer support the size of the calling that was about to unfold. Sometimes, familiarity is the enemy of faith. And when God wants to do something new in your life, he breaks the old alignments first. You may feel alone, you may feel misunderstood. But hear this, you are not being punished, you are being positioned. Just like Abraham, you are being invited into a journey where your identity is no longer tied to your last name, but to your calling name. And your calling name is greater than your family name. God didn't just want to bless Abraham, he wanted to birth something new through him. But that new thing required a new environment. You cannot step into the land I will show you if you're still emotionally tied to the house you came from. So don't resist the distance. Don't mourn the silence too long. Sometimes the first step of faith is stepping away. Abraham obeyed God and left his father's house, but he made one critical exception. He brought Lot with him. Lot wasn't part of the instruction. Lot wasn't part of the promise. Lot was a personal attachment Abraham couldn't let go of, and that decision, although made out of affection, became a burden that nearly cost him everything. At first it seemed harmless. Lot was family, a nephew, someone Abraham likely felt responsible for. But as they journeyed together, something began to shift. Conflict arose, their herds grew, their wealth expanded, and suddenly the land could not support both of them. Genesis 13:6 says, "But the land could not support both Abram and Lot, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together." Here's the spiritual truth. When you try to carry people into your promise who were never part of God's plan, the space around you begins to shrink. Resources dry up. Peace fades. Conflicts rise because divine promises were never designed to support disobedient attachments. Some of you are in constant conflict, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're walking with someone who shouldn't be there anymore. And often that person is family. You feel the tension, you feel the emotional drain. You're trying to honor God and stay connected to someone who, at their core, does not value what God is building in your life. And like Lot, their presence is quietly slowing you down. Look at what happens next in Genesis 13:14. After Lot had separated from him, the Lord said to Abram, "Lift up your eyes. Look around. All the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever." Did you catch it? God didn't speak the fullness of the promise until Lot was gone. God waited. He waited until Abraham released the weight of that relationship before revealing the next step. You may be praying for clarity, for direction for the next chapter, but God is waiting on you to let go of who you're dragging along for emotional reasons. Not every family member is meant to be part of your destiny journey. And while love says, include them, wisdom sometimes says, release them. When Lot finally parted ways with Abraham, it wasn't just a physical separation. It was a spiritual unlocking. Abraham could finally see clearly. The land stretched before him. The weight was gone. The atmosphere changed. And here's the truth. Sometimes you cannot hear God clearly because you're still tuned in to the emotional noise of someone you were supposed to walk away from. You're carrying Lot, and it's clouding your vision. Lot later chose to settle near Sodom, and Abraham had to come to his rescue more than once. It's a pattern. When we keep the wrong people in our lives out of guilt or emotional obligation, we end up cleaning up messes that God never assigned us to fix. Ask yourself this. Is there a Lot in your life right now? Someone you love, but who no longer aligns with where God is taking you? And what if, just like Abraham, the next level of your calling is waiting on the other side of that release? God's separation is not always sudden. Sometimes it's gradual, but when He makes it clear, obedience must follow. Because letting go of Lot means stepping fully into the land of promise. Before David ever faced Goliath, he first had to face something even more dangerous, the jealousy of his own blood. In 1 Samuel 17, David is sent by his father to bring food to his older brothers who are at the battlefield. He's not there to fight. He's not there to be seen. He's simply obeying. But the moment he begins to speak, when he starts asking questions about the giant threatening Israel, his own brother Eliab turns on him. Listen to the words in verse 28. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle." Did you catch that? Eliab didn't see David as a warrior. He didn't see him as a vessel of God. He saw him as a nuisance. He reduced his calling to nothing more than arrogance. He was David's brother, but he couldn't see his anointing. That's the pain many of you know too well. The very people who should support you diminish you. They don't see your heart. They misread your motives. They speak down to your calling. They laugh at your faith. They mock your dreams. And what's most painful is not from strangers, but from those who share your table, your last name, your childhood memories. But here's what you need to see. David didn't respond with anger. He didn't let the words of Eliab define his purpose. He turned away and he kept going. Because David understood something that many people never learn. You don't need the approval of your family to fulfill the assignment of God. David could have argued. He could have defended himself. But instead he focused on the real battle, not the emotional one with his brother, but the spiritual one with the giant. Let me tell you something personal and prophetic. Some of you are wasting time fighting Eliab, while Goliath still stands. You're trying to win the love of someone who has already made up their mind about you. You're trying to explain yourself to someone who has no spiritual capacity to see what God is doing in your life. Let them misunderstand you. Let them mock your faith. Let them call you proud or dramatic or emotional. God didn't choose Eliab. He chose David. And God doesn't need consensus to move through you. He needs obedience. If David had let Eliab's words sink into his heart, he might have walked away, and the giant would have remained. But instead, he pressed on. And that day, David's name changed from the boy with the sheep to the man after God's own heart. And Eliab, he fades from the story, because God removes the voices that don't align with your victory. So here's the takeaway. When your family can't see your calling, don't stop. Keep walking, keep believing, keep slaying the giants God called you to face. Their rejection isn't your disqualification. It's often the sign that you're being set apart. Sometimes God doesn't just separate you from people who don't love you. He silences the people who love you but don't believe in you. In Luke 1, we meet Zechariah and Elizabeth, an elderly couple, righteous before God, but childless. Until one day, the angel Gabriel appears to Zechariah and announces something impossible. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you are to call him John. Luke 1:13. Zechariah should have rejoiced, he should have praised, he should have declared it over his household, but instead he doubted. How can I be sure of this? I am an old man, and my wife is well along in years. That one sentence was enough for God to step in with force. Gabriel replied, "Now you will be silent and not able to speak until the day this happens." Why silence? Because some words, even when spoken from love, carry the power to disrupt destiny. Zechariah wasn't evil. He wasn't jealous. He was simply limited in faith, and in this divine moment, God couldn't risk even a whisper of unbelief poisoning what he was about to do through John the Baptist. So he silenced him. Now pause here. Reflect. This wasn't a stranger. This wasn't a distant enemy. This was the child's own father. And yet God muted his voice to protect the calling on the child's life. There's a lesson here that runs deep. Sometimes God will remove or silence voices in your own family, not because they hate you, but because they can't carry the weight of what's coming. Even loving people can speak death over a dream. Even supportive relatives can unintentionally plant doubt, fear, or limitation in your spirit. And so, God distances you. You may not hear from them. They may not call. They may stop talking about your purpose. You wonder, did I do something wrong? But maybe, just maybe, God is protecting the voice inside of you by quieting the voices around you. And just like with Zechariah, the moment the promise was fulfilled, his mouth was opened. But when he spoke again, his first words were not doubt, they were praise. God had changed him in the silence, which brings another layer of insight. Some separations are temporary but necessary for transformation. God might not keep them away forever, but for now, their silence is sacred. It gives you room to believe without contradiction, to build without interference, to carry your calling without confusion. There's also something beautiful in how Elizabeth carried the child in peace. 5 months she stayed in seclusion, protected from outside opinions, family voices, and cultural shame. God covered her. He shielded her from relatives who might have questioned her age, her health, her worthiness. And in that quiet place, John the Baptist, the forerunner of Jesus, was formed. So if you're in a season where certain voices have gone quiet, certain relatives have pulled away, certain family members no longer speak into your life, don't be afraid. It may not be rejection. It may be God saying, this promise is too big to let doubt grow near. He's creating space for your belief. He's preserving the purity of what he placed inside of you. In John 2, we witness the very first miracle of Jesus, turning water into wine at a wedding in Cana. It's a joyful setting, a celebration, a family affair. And right in the middle of this festive moment, we see something profound take place, not in the miracle itself, but in the conversation that precedes it. Mary, the mother of Jesus, approaches him and says, "They have no more wine." John 2:3. It seems like a simple statement, a request even, but underneath it lies an assumption, an expectation. She knows who he is. She knows what he can do. And now she's subtly pushing him to act, perhaps before it's time. Jesus responds with something that shocks most readers. "Woman, why do you involve me? My hour has not yet come." John 2:4. Wait, what? This is his mother, the one who raised him, the one who believed in him when no one else did. And yet, Jesus gently pushes back, not out of rebellion, not out of pride, but out of clarity. You see, even Jesus, the Son of God, had to establish spiritual boundaries with his own family. He had to remind Mary that his timeline was governed by heaven, not by family pressure. This is so important. Even the people who love you deeply can sometimes project expectations that conflict with God's timing in your life. They mean well. They want to help. They want to see you succeed. But sometimes their help is wrapped in human pressure. And when you carry a divine calling, you must be sensitive enough to discern the difference. Jesus eventually performs the miracle, but not because he was pressured. He does it when the Spirit releases him to act. He doesn't move under emotional manipulation, even from his own mother. This story speaks to those of you who feel crushed under the expectations of family. Maybe they're rushing you into marriage. Maybe they're pushing you toward a career that doesn't align with your purpose. Maybe they keep asking when you'll settle down or become successful in their eyes, but you feel it inside. That's not your timing. That's not your path. That's not what God whispered in the secret place. You're not rebellious. You're not dishonoring them. You're simply choosing to walk by the Spirit, not by pressure. And notice what happens next. Mary doesn't argue. She doesn't demand. She turns to the servants and says, "Do whatever he tells you." Even she understood, this calling belongs to God, not to me. That's the turning point in many family dynamics, when those who love you finally release control and allow God to lead your steps. But sometimes, that shift only happens after you draw a clear line, like Jesus did. You are allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to say not yet or not that way without guilt. Because honoring your calling sometimes means disappointing those who love you. It's not disrespect, it's direction. And just like at Cana, the miracle still happens. But it happens God's way in God's time. So don't be afraid to lovingly say, "My hour has not yet come." Before Moses ever stood before Pharaoh, before he ever parted the Red Sea or received the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai, he tried to help his own people, and they rejected him. In Exodus 2:11-14, we see a defining moment. One day, after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were and watched them at their hard labor. He saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew. Looking this way and that and seeing no one, he killed the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. The next day, Moses sees 2 Hebrews fighting and tries to intervene, thinking surely they'd understand he was on their side. But instead of gratitude, he gets this response. "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" And just like that, everything Moses thought he understood about his identity, his mission, and his people was shattered. Rejection, isolation, fear. He flees to the desert alone. But here's what many miss. That moment of rejection, so humiliating, so painful, was the doorway to Moses' true calling. Because if he had stayed in Egypt, trying to win the approval of people who didn't recognize his anointing, he would have missed the burning bush. He would have missed the voice of God calling out to him from fire. He would have missed the divine commission that would change history. Sometimes the people you're trying to save are the ones God must remove you from first. Moses was Hebrew. He looked like them, spoke their language, knew their pain, but they didn't accept him. They saw only the surface. They saw a prince of Egypt, not a prophet of God. Have you ever felt that way? Like you've tried to help, tried to love, tried to give yourself fully to your family, and yet they still question your motives? They still throw your past in your face? They still mock your convictions, your faith, your transformation? You're not alone. Moses was rejected by his own people, but that rejection led him to the wilderness. And in the wilderness, God began to shape the deliverer. The desert wasn't punishment, it was preparation. There, away from the noise of family rejection, Moses heard the voice of destiny. And when God finally sends him back to Egypt, Moses doesn't return as a desperate man looking for approval. He returns as a man sent by God, carrying authority, signs, and the fire of heaven. And here's the mystery. The same people who once said, "Who made you ruler over us?" later followed him through the Red Sea. Rejection isn't the end of the story. It's often the start of your training. God will allow those closest to you to push you away, not to harm you, but to draw you into a deeper relationship with Him. And when the time is right, He may send you back, not to seek validation, but to bring liberation. So if you're walking through a season where those closest to you can't see you, can't support you, can't love you the way you need, don't beg for their acceptance. Go to the wilderness. Find the burning bush. Let God speak to the you that they cannot see. Because in the silence of that desert, your true name is being revealed. And that name is not rejected, it is chosen. In Judges 6, we find Gideon, hidden, uncertain, afraid, threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. He's not a warrior. He is not a leader. He is simply surviving. But God sees something else. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Judges 6:12. It seems laughable. Gideon, a warrior, he's hiding, he's doubting. He's the least in his family, and his family is the least in their tribe. But that's exactly where God loves to show up, in the overlooked, the underestimated, the unloved. And when God calls Gideon, the very first thing He asks him to do is not fight a foreign enemy, but destroy something in his own backyard. Judges 6:25-26. Tear down your father's altar to Baal and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. Wait, his father's altar, yes. Before Gideon could lead a nation to victory, he had to confront the idolatry inside his own household. This wasn't just about false gods. This was about toxic spiritual inheritance. Gideon had grown up in a home where compromise was normal, where worship was divided, where culture crept into faith. And God was saying, if you're going to walk in what I've called you to do, you must separate yourself, even from the spiritual patterns of your family. Can you feel the weight of that? Because some of you were raised in homes where God was spoken of, but not honored, where faith was performed, but not lived, where trauma, manipulation, secrecy, or religion masqueraded as truth. And now, as you step into your calling, God is saying to you what He said to Gideon: tear it down. Tear down the guilt, tear down the cycle of silence, tear down the pressure to conform, tear down the need for their approval, because what's been built in the past, even by people you love, may not be pure, and if it's standing in the way of the Lord's voice, it must fall. This was not easy for Gideon. It meant going against the grain of his family's legacy. It meant becoming a target, not just of enemies, but of his own people. Verse 27 tells us Gideon obeyed, but he did it at night, out of fear. God didn't rebuke him for the fear. He honored the obedience, because even fearful obedience is more powerful than passive compromise. And when the town discovered what he had done, they wanted to kill him. But something shifted. Joash, Gideon's father, the very man whose altar had been torn down, suddenly stands up and defends his son. If Baal really is a god, let him defend himself. Judges 6:31. Do you see what happened? Gideon's obedience didn't just break a curse. It awakened truth in someone who had been bound by lies. When you stand up against spiritual compromise in your family, you may think you're starting a war, but you could be starting a revival. Sometimes God distances you from loved ones, not out of anger, but to give you the courage to confront what no one else dared to. Because before Gideon ever led 300 men to defeat the Midianites, he had to defeat the idols in his own family. Victory out there always begins with obedience in here. And perhaps that's what God is doing in your life right now. You're not just being separated, you're being set apart. When Jesus called his disciples, he wasn't just recruiting followers, he was building a family. But not one based on bloodlines, DNA, or cultural expectations. This was a new kind of family, a spiritual family, a heavenly community. Look at how radical the call was. In Matthew 4:22, James and John, two brothers, are in a boat with their father, Zebedee, fishing, working, living the family trade. And then Jesus appears and says, "Follow me." Without hesitation, the text says, immediately they left the boat and their father and followed him. Do you see it? They left their father. Not out of rebellion, not out of anger, but because when Jesus calls you, everything changes. And for some, that call includes walking away from systems, expectations, and yes, even family members who cannot walk with you where you're going. But here's the mystery. As they left their earthly families, Jesus gave them something greater. He gave them brothers in the Spirit. He gave them a mission, a purpose. He created around them a bond so deep, it would later be described in Acts as one heart and one soul. Mark 10:29-30 gives us the promise directly from Jesus' lips. Truly I tell you, no one who has left home or brothers or sisters or mother or father or children or fields for me and the gospel will fail to receive 100 times as much in this present age and in the age to come, eternal life. Yes, God sees what you left. He sees who rejected you. He sees the family members who stopped calling, the ones who no longer speak your name with love, the ones who shut the door and walked away. And he says, you will not lack. In this life, not just in heaven, you will be surrounded by more mothers, more fathers, more brothers, more sisters, not by blood, but by spirit. You see, Jesus redefined family. He showed us that family is not who shares your past, but who walks with you into your future. And for every person watching this who feels abandoned, unwanted, unloved by those who were supposed to be there for you, God has not forgotten you. He is forming around you a circle of people who speak your language of faith, who pray when you pray, who cry when you cry, who push you forward when you feel like quitting. They may not have your blood, but they share your fire. And it is that family, the one birthed in spirit and truth, that will carry you into your destiny. So if you've been mourning the distance between you and your family, if you've been asking God, why did you allow this separation? Know this. Sometimes the letting go is to make room for the greater embrace. God is not leaving you empty. He is making space for the people who will truly love you as he does. The disciples didn't just follow Jesus into ministry, they followed him into divine connection. And that same connection is available to you. You made it. That alone sets you apart. Very few people reach the end of a message like this, not because they can't, but because they aren't willing to go this deep. But you did. You walked through valleys of rejection, betrayal, silence, confusion, and you listened with your heart open. That tells me something about you. You are hungry for truth, you are ready for healing, and deep down you know God is doing something in your life, even if it doesn't look the way you thought it would. Before anything else, I want you to write this phrase in the comments right now, as a sign that you've come this far and received this message. God separated me to save me, and I trust him. Write it boldly. This is how I'll know your name is among the chosen, the ones who finish what others only start. Let that phrase be your declaration of faith. Let it be your proof that you are ready to stop chasing love from those who can't give it and start resting in the love of the one who never fails. Now listen closely. What you just heard in this video was not just a teaching, it was a divine invitation. God is calling you to release the guilt you've carried over broken family relationships. He's calling you to stop seeing every silence as your fault. And He's asking you to finally believe that some distances are His design, not your failure. You are not alone. There is a spiritual family being formed around you right now. Every time you watch a video like this, every time you comment, every time you subscribe or like, it's not just digital activity, it's spiritual alignment. When you like this video, you helped YouTube push this message into the lives of people who are crying behind closed doors. When you subscribed, you joined a community where the Holy Spirit moves, where healing happens, where your story is not an accident, but part of a bigger testimony God is writing. So let me say it clearly. If you haven't liked or subscribed yet, do it now. Don't be the one who receives and stays silent. Don't consume without contributing. Because if this video spoke to you, you have a responsibility. Help carry this message to someone else who needs it. Imagine this. You're on a boat. The storm is raging, and you find a life vest. This video, you put it on, you breathe again, but behind you, others are drowning. Would you keep the vest to yourself? Or would you throw them one too? That's what sharing this video is. That's what commenting and liking do. They become life vests in a sea of confusion and pain. So be bold. Be part of this move. Be proud that you stayed, that you listened, that you allowed God to speak into this hidden place in your heart. And if you haven't subscribed, don't wait. This channel is more than content. It's church for the soul. It's a sanctuary for the hurting. It's a voice when you feel forgotten. Now, as this video ends, I want to invite you into a final moment of peace. Stay still. Don't rush away. Let the music carry you into a space of quiet worship. Close your eyes, breathe deep, and as you sit in this stillness, just whisper to God, "Thank you for loving me enough to remove what I couldn't let go of. Thank you for protecting me from what I thought I needed. Thank you for never leaving me, even when others did." Let that praise rise like incense from your heart. Let this be your offering tonight. Don't pause the video. Don't cut the connection. Let it finish, so your spirit can remain in harmony with His presence until the final second. And remember this, you are not rejected. You are protected. You are not abandoned. You are chosen. You are not alone. You are surrounded by heaven. Stay with us. Watch the next video. Keep the flame alive. Until then, stay faithful, stay listening, and stay loved.